Today marks 1 year since I returned from the trip, vacation, excursion thing. It's like one of the coolest things that I've ever done, and low-key I've kind of based my entire personality on it for the past year. Just kidding, but the trip that I'm talking about is the trip that this episode is named after, the Alaskan adventure thing that I took in August of 2022 with two of like my best friends from high school, man. It's cool to know that we went to the same high school for about 4 years, and then we went our separate ways in college, and then at the end of college, it was kind of our graduation trip. And originally we recorded something back in February, but the audio kind of didn't turn out super well. But today I'm going to tell the entire tale. I keep saying all these T's, but from the initial thought of doing the trip, how it relates to the 5 points trip thing that I have planned out. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that one's going to take like my entire life. The travel, like the grocery shopping, the sights that we saw. I mean, we're going to see where this episode goes. I'm going to try and cover every single thing that happened, and if I can recover the audio, we'll see. It might even be a little bit of a jump cut episode. We're going to see what happens here, but I'm just going to recap as much as I can because it's a year later, you know? It was one of the coolest things that I've ever done, and I'm going to see how much I can remember 1 year later of us coming back to it. It all started with an idea for just some kind of cool graduation trip. I was working for a company called War Eagle Productions. It was like ESPN in my college town, and I remember it was either in February or March. I think I might have been either working like a basketball game or doing some audio for maybe a basketball game as well. It would have been that time of the year, but I remember this is right around when that war started in Ukraine and Russia, and I remember a few minutes into us talking about it, I was like, yeah, they kind of were beefing. We couldn't figure out whose fault it was, but either way, Reagan and Carl were planning on taking a trip to Europe, and then that started, so they were like, yeah, we can't really do that. And then I was in the middle of my shift, and I think I texted Reagan. I was like, hey, what if we did this? And then I'm pretty sure I called him after I got home after that shift, and I was like, dude, we just came up with an idea in like February, and we kind of would occasionally kick the idea around in a group chat between the three of us, but we didn't really buy any plane tickets or anything until June or May, June, July, but the trip was in August, very beginning of August, and that's a very important detail because the entirety of my July and then all of August and then September that was a wild time. So it's going to be a fun thing to recap this. So during my internship is when I'm planning on like what I need to get for all this. I remember after Reagan bought the plane tickets, I rented the car. I remember being in the office and looking at different cars on this website because I was already planning on getting rid of the current car that I had and getting a new car. And then I was thinking about renting a car. I remember those were some of the last days of my internship, was planning out some of this trip. So we get the plane tickets, we get the car rented, we get some Airbnbs, and now we got to do all the grocery shopping. So this is stuff like hiking shoes. So I bought a pair of Solomons. I bought those during the summer just because I think I wanted a pair. I've always wanted a nice pair of hiking shoes, and I knew we were going to do something cool. I had to get like the hiking pants, with the zip off, with the legs and all that. I got 2 pairs of those, and those things, they were perfect. They're like waterproof or whatever. We had to get some rope. We didn't really use a whole lot of it, like cord. Like we never really went far enough into the wilderness and camped overnight that we had to throw our food up in a tree. Like we went on some camping trips, but it was never that serious. And some of the places we camped, we had like a bear cage thing to make sure that if a bear showed up, it couldn't take our food. But okay, I'm kind of getting on a little bit of a tangent. I'm reading from a note right now as I'm recapping this and trying to make sure I get myself on a good track. It's probably going to take like all afternoon to really record this and recap it. I don't know how long this episode is going to be in total, but back to the groceries, I had to get a headlamp, and headlamp turns out to be something that I still use all the time. Like I have a Walmart one that I'll use a good bit around the house occasionally if I'm having to do stuff. But there's other stuff that we had to get while we were there too. Like there's stuff that I had to get before because I knew it'd be easier to get before. It's more convenient. But when we get there, we got to get a cooler because we're going to be gone for multiple days. Like we're going to need to keep our stuff cold, and just you're going to need a cooler. Whenever we got to the Airbnb, the first Airbnb we stayed at, I made sure we got it for a few days just in case and I'm very glad that we did. But we'll talk about like the groceries later in the Airbnb. But I spent those last days of my internship. Okay, actually, I'm recapping something that I already talked about whenever I'm looking at the note. But in the last days of my internship, I went to North Carolina in Asheville, so like 4 hours east. And then I just kind of hung out, enjoyed the last bits of the summer. Because this is like the last couple days of my life before I have to start working all the time. Like internship, and then I graduate at the beginning of August. So I go there, hang out in the woods, do stuff. I found a plane. Long story. I could tell that one another day. And then I go back to Auburn because I have to start packing up my apartment. I'm about to move out. I lived in a solo apartment my senior year of college, and that was the move. If anyone's wondering what they want to do, live by yourself in college for a year if you get the chance. It was totally worth it. So I'm packing up, and then I go back to Atlanta. So I go from like Asheville to Auburn, 5 hours. Back to Atlanta is like 2.5 or so. Go hang out with my buddy Hugh. Shout out Big H. We went to a Braves game, met up with my cousin. Then I go back to Auburn, finish packing, move the furniture out, and then I go back home. So that's 3 hours there. I'm at home for a few days, and then I go back to Auburn to graduate, really at Lake Martin. So it's like 3.5, 4 hours. And then I go back home. So that's a lot of back and forth from the end of July to August 5th or so. And August 5th is when we left for Alaska, I believe, because we were there for like 20 days or 16 days, I think. I'm trying to remember how many nights. Well, I think we spent like 8 days outside, but it was like a 2-week-long trip. We were there for a long damn time, and that's why I'm making an entire episode about it, because this is literally one of the coolest trips that I've ever done, and I think it's worth making an episode about. Unfortunately, the audio that we had back then, I only had 2 microphones, so there's just going to be jump cuts if I even use it. We'll see what's about to happen. But let me see where I'm at with the notes. So, okay, memorable moments is what I was at right now. So I probably got about 10 minutes into listening to that thing, and I was just writing stuff down, trying to lay out somewhat of a framework. But I'm going to go back into listening to it. It's looking at the memorable moments right now. Like the day that I get back from Auburn after graduation, I went to Reagan's house because I had to go get this frame backpack thing. Make sure that I pack up the backpack, get it completely ready to go, and leave it at his house because he's going to ride with someone that's going to come pick us up on the day that we fly out of Pensacola, which is like an hour from where we all grew up and whatever. So the day finally arrives, and then Carl is up in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Well, he's like on his way back. They pretty much drove back all throughout the night. They were at a fish run, like a couple nights of fish playing Atlantic City. So I'm sitting in a Starbucks parking lot. I don't even know what time of the morning it was. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but if I went and looked at my old plane ticket, I'd be able to figure it out. But I'm sitting there just waiting, just ready to go, anxious because I'm about to fly pretty much not as far away from home as I've ever been, but Alaska for 2 weeks, camping a whole lot. That's kind of, you get where I'm coming from, I guess, with this. And I don't know, there's like the great unknown. But we get to the airport, and then Reagan's got his gun. You know, he's got the Glock. We got to make sure if we see a bear, we're ready to pull up on it. Not that it would absolutely have to happen, but only if it's absolutely necessary. That's not what I need to get to. What I need to get to is that it was locked up, but you have to have as many locks as there's things that you can lock it with on a case. So we're already kind of running behind a little bit. Then Reagan's got to run up to the duty-free store, pick up another lock. Then we get through TSA. We're finally there. We get on the plane. After we get on the plane, we make it to Dallas. And then Dallas is another place where stuff starts going wrong. Of course, the story's going to have a good ending. But whenever we get to Dallas, well, our flight gets canceled because there's rain. It's like delayed. It's like barely raining at all. But they delay our flight. And then they're like, all right, you're going to either have to go somewhere else or this just isn't happening. So we kind of wait until the last minute. And I don't know what Carl said to this person, but they were able to hook it up. And they flew us into Seattle instead of Portland. So it's like, okay, sweet. We're in Seattle. We're going to get to Anchorage as planned around like 2 a.m. Or it was originally supposed to be like 1 a.m., but we got in at 2 a.m. We had to go to different airport, all that. Dallas, sorry, but that was an entire mess. I don't really want to curse at that airport right now because that's bad luck. But we get into Anchorage, 2 a.m., tired as can be because I've been going since, I guess, 5 a.m., not 5 a.m., probably 6 or 7 a.m. Central Time, and it's 2 a.m. there, which it's 3 or 4 hours. So it's nearly 24 hours that I feel like I've been going for, maybe a nap or so on the plane. It's kind of hard to remember all the details from the flights itself. And our bags never made it. So we just say, all right, whatever. We're going to go to the place. We had to go pick up the car, and the car is the same exact type of car that Reagan drove in high school. So that was a really cool kind of throwback. The Silver Stallion. It was like a 2013 or 14 Hyundai Santa Fe. I'm definitely going to post some good pictures from this trip when I do the Instagram post for this. But we fly into Seattle. Not Seattle. We fly into Anchorage. The bags aren't there. We go check in at the Airbnb. We just sleep. I wake up the next morning. I have COVID. So it's just not off to a great start for your boy JP right here. But Reagan and Carl, they're doing all right. Carl has a rough day after, but we'll get to that in just a minute. But they go to the airport and they're like, is the stuff here yet? It's not there yet. We didn't really get our stuff back that day till maybe 11 o'clock at night. And this is the first full day in Alaska. We had the Airbnb for maybe 2 or 3 days. I think 3 nights technically, or 4, but God, it was a rough start. The COVID start with no bags in the airport and the waiting and the anxiety. And I promise this story gets it goes well in just a minute, but it started off on the wrong foot. But we finally get our bags that night. What even happened that day on that first day there of me having COVID? I really don't remember hardly any of it. I feel like I was in the car getting dragged around to places shopping. I remember we went to Walmart. I bought clothes there that I had to leave behind, coolers. It's just that day it just doesn't really ring many bells to me. But I'm going to see where I could get with this audio, enjoy some jump cuts, and we'll be back in just a moment. I remember whenever we went to go pick up that car, and that was the first thing I thought. I was like, dude, this is about to be just like high school again.
The nostalgia, it was like high school.
It did feel pretty high schooly.
Except that the gas cap actually, sat in flush with the car. Because I remember that was the biggest thing I remember about your car is the gas cap was always.
I broke the gas cap.
However that happened. But you're the only person I know that's ever been able to change their own headlight. I don't know if that's saying a lot about me. I've never had to change a headlight before.
Not going to change your own headlight?
I've never had to do it before. But I remember watching you do that in Grandma's front yard. I drove by her house the other day.
City boy?
City boy? Yeah, basically, bro. Basically. Well, you're from Midtown, man.
No, I'm not.
This motherfucker is from Satsuma.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, my dad's calling me right now. That's going to have to wait. So as Carl was saying about the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, we got on there. So we make it to our flight. Well, we make it to Pensacola Airport.
Getting to Pensacola was actually really easy. We had a slight conniption at the initial front desk because I was trying to
check a gun into the flight.
Yeah, I was trying to check my handgun, and nowhere does it say that both sides of the container have to be locked. I personally think the container was pretty secure, but they insisted that I lock it up as much as possible.
Yeah, so we had to. Well, you took a quick trip to the duty free to get the extra lock, and then we finally get in. They're walking through TSA. Bro, have you seen those memes about whispering to the TSA guy, "Don't be a hero"? Yeah, so basically, we get through the airport security, make it to Dallas, and it rains there for 5 minutes, and they say, "Yeah, y'all aren't going anywhere."
But like they're like, dude, lay down because you're getting a couple of rim cycles in.
I walked up to the desk though at some point, and I was like,
only 8 hours in.
Yeah, I can't remember what I did. I must have put on like my charm something.
I guess, dude, whatever you did exactly what you needed to do.
But I was like, look, there are 3 of us. We like gotta get to Alaska right now. And she was like, okay, here you are. Here are seats on a trip to Seattle, and then you can go to Alaska from there. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
that just worked in our favor. And the poor people that were sitting in front of us, man, they didn't get for help.
I know. We were talking to some people next to us.
Yeah, that was like the nicest couple ever. I kind of felt terrible about it. I was really hoping that we would see them in
They
Alaska.
watched us succeed.
They did kind of they watched us on the come up, and they stayed down low.
I feel like their names were like Betsy and something like that.
I
remember they were
very
older people.
Generic old people from Texas.
It was like the most NPC Bob and Karen that you could have gotten, but they were the sweetest people on earth.
They were super good. They were good. Jesus, they were good people.
Oh, I bet her name was Susan.
They were kind folk.
I would remember if her name was Susan. But so we get to SeaTac, and then that was probably the most painless part of the whole trip.
I just spilled coffee on my...
Carl just spilled coffee on himself, and he just woke up like a half hour ago. So we get into Anchorage at 2 a.m., and the first thing that went wrong in Anchorage was we didn't get our luggage because our flight got redirected. Because we were supposed to go to Portland, and that didn't work out. So we went through Seattle, thanks to Carl's charm. So we get into Anchorage at 2 a.m.
Our luggage did go to Oregon.
It did?
Yeah.
So our luggage went to the right place, and then we didn't, and then we make it to
We had to go
Anchorage.
to Walmart and buy clothes.
Yeah.
We didn't have any, so now, lesson learned, always pack clothes in the carry-on too.
Yeah, I had that move. I had that leather
I was
that
told
leather
that,
carry-on.
but I was like, f it. I only ever lose my luggage when I'm coming home. And then it happened.
And then
I was
we
like,
lost it
oh,
on the way
cool.
there. So we get there, and then I called a Lyft. I don't remember that guy's name, but I remember he was from Pakistan.
Oh my gosh, that dude.
What was his name, dude? He was hilarious.
It sounds terrible, but I feel like his name was literally Muhammad.
I think it was.
It might have been
yeah,
Muhammad.
it really
honestly.
actually was Muhammad.
I can check my Lyft history, but that dude was great. We will get into what he referred to himself as, but let's just say he had a lot of great racial jokes about himself that made us laugh because we were delirious at 2 a.m. in basically what felt like a foreign country because we were 3,000 miles from home, and then we get to our Airbnb. Well,
He was just talking mad shit about Pakistani people.
yeah, dude.
Yeah,
He's like, I'm from there.
We
but-
didn't. There wasn't even any prompt. He was just. We were just asking like what it brought him to Alaska and everything, and he just like started throwing it out there. It was like, oh, this is hilarious because self degradation, but like, man,
He referred to
dude,
himself
you're killing
as
people.
a lot of different things, but the one that I think we can get away with saying was camel jockey.
Yeah, that was.
I feel like that's
That
the
dude- that
safest
dude
one we
threw
can
that
say.
one out there. He had
Well,
met
he's actually his exact words were, "I ain't."
Yeah.
this man had met us for.
Oh, hold on. That cable's loose right now. Hold on. You might have to say something into it. Okay, now it's working again. I don't know what it is with that weak-ass cable. I had the same problem the other day when I was recording. But so thank you to our Lyft driver who got us to our car that took us to the Silver Stallion, which we picked up, and then we drove to our Airbnb, which was honestly pretty nice.
Yeah,
Thank
that
God.
Airbnb was a weird situation. I didn't realize that it was gonna be like the basement of someone's house.
Yeah.
But it was a very nice basement that they had renovated. They had one of the lamps above the toilet so that you could turtle out and
You
get some
could what?
photosynthesis going. Turtle. They got the cold. They like to sit in the sun.
What are you talking about?
Sunbathing.
There was
but
no sun hardly at all when we were there. The
They had
only
a-
time
they-
that we got to see the sun
They had
was
a
in
they
the
had a
park.
heater above the toilet. That's what I'm saying.
That-
It's like
oh,
a heating lamp. It's like
they
the
did.
lizard thing. There
That
you go.
was
The
pretty
lizard
fire.
thing.
The
Yeah.
lizard thing. So we get to our Airbnb and we stay the night there, and I wake up the next morning and I have COVID. I woke up the next morning and I had COVID and we had no luggage.
Well,
That was never confirmed.
You didn't.
No, it's been
really-
confirmed.
That was
it
never
like
confirmed.
I did
such
some
the
research and I
faintest
found
That was
line
never
on that
confirmed.
little fucking test, dude. But you had COVID, and I had an abscess in the back of my throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got there and went to bed because he was like doing his thing. Carl, on the other hand, I had to spend about how long did I think you and I like had what did we do?
Y'all spent a day together.
while
man.
he slept, we didn't have our luggage. The only thing we really had to our names at that point, whenever JP was dying of sickness, he was dying of a pain in the back of his throat. So we didn't have anything. We were like, well, we got cash.
We spent a good bit of money, but it's a legal state, so it's okay that we do things like this. And then, so y'all get back. I'm like in the twilight zone basically all day, in and out of sleep. We went to some diner, and I could barely taste my food. I could barely even tell where I was going.
That diner was a fever dream for me as well.
Yeah, that diner. I just remember.
I just remember
pain.
Carl 100% giving the waitress the me eyes and going, "Ooh, thank you."
Carl was definitely trying to get it on with our Alaskan waitress.
Hey, and
So the COVID day happens, and then y'all ended up going to get the luggage, I think, because I remember we went to the airport, I think 2 different times.
we went to that airport at least 3 times, waiting for our luggage to get there because at no point were they like, "Yeah, we'll call you whenever it comes in." It was more or less one of those things where it's like, I don't know, show up over the course of the next 3 days. It may or may not be here.
But we ended up getting our luggage, thank God. And then I think y'all got the luggage at like 10 p.m. on our first full day there.
Yeah, we went home, took showers, changed, got new clothes and going and everything. We all passed the out, and then next day we were actually able to get up and enjoy ourselves. Well, actually, JP and I were able to get up and enjoy ourselves. Sweet baby Carl here woke up with an abscess in the back of his throat.
Oh, and I was being a dick.
Yeah,
too.
I
was in pain.
I understand, man.
He was in
I understand.
It's like
moods.
having the biggest rock in your shoe, except
Oh.
it's like having the biggest
Oh.
you can't breathe or eat or.
Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on how you know that?
That's what I'm assuming it feels like, because every time you swallow, you feel something punch you in the back of the uvula.
So first day
A lot
I
of
have
things
COVID.
happen in Alaska, folks.
Second day we wake up, and then I think we ate something in the Airbnb, and then we take Carl to the Doc in a Box urgent care. They shoot him up with like 4 different things,
Send
and
him
then
into
Carl
anaphylactic
basically
shock.
sends
Yeah.
Carl into shock, and they're like, all right, we have to send him to the ER. So they take
Yeah.
him to the ER, and Reagan and I just have no clue what to do. So we left you there and went to Wingstop.
That ambulance ride was a crazy.
Yeah, let's talk. Let's
Yeah,
rewind
let's
and
hear
talk
your
about the
perspective on
actual
the ambulance
experience.
ride.
Okay, so props to Alaskan healthcare. I've never met a person in the healthcare industry that actually enjoyed this as their life. Up there, that was very different. They all seemed very happy to help. But yeah, they sent homeboy into anaphylactic shock, and they were like, whoopsies.
Yeah, it caught me up with I got
Like 2 steroids and 2 antibiotics.
yeah, antibiotics in one arm and painkillers in the other arm, and then I got steroids in my ass. And they were like, okay,
Supplemental.
we're gonna be right back. And as soon as they left the room, it was like
Oh, the world's spinning.
well, no, it's like I got really hot, and all of a sudden I was like, man, I'm like so thirsty, and I was like drenched in sweat, and I went and like literally turned on the sink in the office and just like covered my face in water.
Yeah.
And was like shoving water in my mouth, and I sat back down, and she comes back in, and she legit, I watched her like she'd seen a ghost. She goes, "Ooh, you don't look so good." And I was
Yeah,
like,
no
I don't feel so good.
So
And
then
they call the ambulance. The ambulance shows up 3,000 miles away from home. We still managed to run into somebody from Mobile. He actually knows people
We did.
people from my family.
Yeah.
I
All
forgot
the
about
way
that.
in rural Alaska. So
Well, we were in the rural part of Alaska.
I mean, that wasn't necessarily
in
rural.
Anchorage.
We were in Alaska. I'm pretty certain that defines itself as rural
Yeah.
itself. So
I mean, Anchorage is a city. It's
It was
like
pretty
Mobile.
well developed. It was more well
they have
developed
better
than
infrastructure
Mobile
than
in some
any place I've ever
arguments.
been.
Well, you know,
I just remember
that's true.
I remember sitting in that car, and then Reagan came out and said they just called an ambulance. They're sending Carl to the ER, and I just was thinking, what the The first thing I'm thinking is like, are you kidding me right now?
Well, by the time I get to the ER, you know, like
Well, he told me not to even tell his parents.
Oh, well, I told you not to tell Mom.
You did. I remember you called him because you called him and then they picked him up. And I remember they wheeled Carl out and I was like, whoa, he looks super white right now.
Yeah, no, dude, I like literally I looked at the doctor in the Doc in the Box whenever all this started happening, and I was like, I thought this would be more glamorous. And she was like, what the are you talking about? Like, you're gonna be fine. She put me on an O2 machine, and then the people got there.
Where
'Cause
where does it even go from there? We got to the ER.
Oh, dude, we got to the ER. I was so souped up on painkillers that weren't opioid that like I was like feeling kind of like I think I can go home now. You know, like I'm good. And they were like, "No, bro, you still got that thing back there. Like, we got to do something about that."
Yeah.
And the doc was like, "Okay, we're gonna have to stick a needle in there and drain it." And I was like, "Oh, dude, whatever it takes, I want it out." And they made me sit there for.
You forget the part where they were like, "But you got to be awake."
Oh yeah, got to be awake the whole time. Well, so they offered me like some opioid drug that I was not all about, and I was like, no, don't give me that. I want
Something else.
15 cc's of ketamine.
Yeah. So they gave you the horse tranquilizer.
They
and
gave
then,
me 10 cc's of ketamine. So.
And while this is all occurring,
Me and Reagan went to the beach.
we did go to the beach. We went to this lovely park, found a homeless camp.
We were minding our own, but
I mooned what I presumed to be Russia at the time, but learned that I am in fact stupid. It was
just the other side of the bay.
It
in
was
Anchorage.
just the other side of the bay. Yeah.
Reagan, just classic Reagan, showing his ass for no reason.
Hey, they deserve it. They deserve it.
His little
The Russians
ass.
do. Yeah, after invading Ukraine. Didn't we start this episode with talking about Ukraine? We started off with talking about how y'all were...
Let's not go back to it.
Yeah, let's not go back to that. So while Reagan and I are at the beach, Carl is giggling his ass off, getting shot up with ketamine, having an abscess drained from the back of his throat. And then we ended up going to pick up
Swear you
Carl.
couldn't even feel it with all that ketamine.
And then we pick him up. So I think after 48 hours of being there, we're okay.
We've had a trip to the ER, and this is all while like wearing the same clothes. We forget to. This is all occurring before we get our luggage.
No, we had our luggage by that second day. But when
did
Carl,
I thought we didn't get it till the third day.
no, we had it. We had it before we checked out of the Airbnb. I know that because we checked out of the Airbnb on the third day, and on the third day we wake up and it is raining. Because I remember I had leftovers. Because you were like, we are not taking these leftover wings in the car, and I was like, the hell, yeah, we are.
Dude, that car smelled like
That
garlic
car smelled
Parmesan
so
wings
bad.
for like
2 days.
4 hours. Yeah, it's not really 2 days, but like for about 4 hours during that initial drive, I was really, really thinking about kicking you out of the car.
Oh, I did not give a dude. So after we check out of the Airbnb in the rain, we're fully packed up in the Silver Stallion. Carl is fine. I'm fine. We are ready to cast off and actually begin our adventure. Because the first 2 days,
I was having a great time from the moment we got there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, it's not that I wasn't having a good time. It's just we started our trip at rock bottom, and then we literally got to see the tallest peak in America. So we went all the way from the bottom, all the way to the top. We went to a hot spring. But whenever we drove south and I was eating those wings, driving down the coast like that, that is literally some of the best.
That was the craziest
Oh,
visual experience I think I've ever went through in my entire life. I remember very specifically listening to Slump by Outkast on that ride, and it was just.
I remember
it was
Rosa
just
Parks.
crazy.
Well, we listened to all of Aquemini.
Yeah, we listened. We killed a Clemini, and then what else did we go through? Oh, Random Access Memories by Daft Punk.
Oh, dude, we did Aquemini, Random Access Memories. We listened to a lot of Fish shows, Pink Floyd albums. The song remains the same. Country music. We listened to a whole lot of this.
That trip had so much good music surrounding it.
Amazing music.
And I brought my guitar. Not to say that that's
The guitar. So we leave Anchorage and drive to Seward. All the while it's raining. We get down there, and the first thing I think on our shopping list is getting tarps for our tents. So they
Yeah,
wouldn't.
so you know,
because we got rained on the night before.
So the first night after after we left the Airbnb, we had made it. I want to say we trekked all the way to Kenai, and then when we got to Kenai, we were like, "Yo, I don't know where anything is, and the conditions here are slightly miserable at the moment. We're talking like 120% humidity." Raining, and on top of all of that, it's like a brisk, like what, 53, 52 degrees outside at all times.
Something like that.
It wasn't freezing, but it was definitely uncomfortable. But so we get there and we're like, well, I don't really know where anything is or how to fish up here or anything like that. So we ended up backtracking and going back up to what's the name of that?
Lake Ski Lock?
Yeah, ended up backtracking going to Lake Ski Lock. I feel like we stayed in one random one-off place at one point.
We definitely did.
What was the name of that one place where we found the really cool campground next to the creek, but we all got soaked that night?
Yeah, that was our first night outdoors. So we did 2 separate runs of 4 nights outdoors. The first night was the one by that creek because someone recommended that campground to us when we were in Seward. Because we went to Seward to go shopping. And
don't shop there. Don't shop there. Oh
don't shop in Seward because that's a stop for the the cruise lines.
You can't go to the bathroom without spending $10.
Yeah,
There's like nothing there.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I was confused about. Like we walked into like this little shack. We were like, all right, yeah, this looks like a pier restaurant like we have in Mobile, like the River Shack or something like that. It looks like you walk in, barefoot is acceptable. Get a beer, get a burger, you're good. Nah, we walked into a shack that quickly turned into like a 4-star restaurant on the inside.
The moment I saw that red carpet on the floor, I was like, Jesus. And then I spent $50 on a sirloin with double potato.
Hey, that food was probably the best I'd eaten that entire time. I remember being able to look out at the bay.
Dude, that's that salmon I had, and the salmon and like not halibut maybe. I know we had some salmon. What did you have?
I got the halibut.
Reagan had the halibut. I had a steak, and Carl had the salmon. And dude, that was the best we ate. After that, we went to the grocery store.
And the cool thing about that sounds pretty typical, but the cool thing about that is it was all caught in the bay outside of the restaurant.
Yeah, it was good.
Where the water looked like Gatorade Glacier Freeze. It was the craziest thing ever. I didn't think that.
Oh, dude, see that glacier.
I feel like a seal would pretty typically be like visible
We
underwater.
saw a seal, didn't we?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I feel like they would typically be visible underwater because they're darker and the water is so blue there. This water was so blue. The moment his head dipped underwater, it was like he disappeared.
It was really cool. It was straight up the color of that Gatorade Glacier Freeze.
It was.
So after we get dinner, we went to the grocery store, and they were charging what, like $11.29 for a bundle of wood. So we bought 2 bundles of wood.
Yeah, at that point.
And then a third one just magically appeared next to our car. We don't know how it got there, but we ended up getting our wood and going to our campground. Remember, it's raining the whole time. So we get to our campground and we set up our stuff. And my tent was a 10-year-old tent that had been sitting in my garage forever, musty and gross. And we didn't know how to sleep in the tent because that was our first night outdoors of the trip. And
like
then
how to apportion.
At least y'all. Hey. On the upside, at least y'all had windows.
Yeah. That really sucked about yours, man. You had to buy the patch kit thing for yours.
I will say I did kind of flex my MacGyver skills.
Can you hem pants? I have some dress pants if you could hem those for me.
Baby, I will sew anything you give me. I'll make you a pillow.
That would be really nice if you could do that.
Continue.
We wake up after our first night outdoors soaking wet, and I say, I'm ready to go home. I wasn't for real ready to go home. But I mean, considering this is
that was pretty miserable because that was also whenever it was like the rain really like it hit us at full force and then it just gradually declined throughout the trip. So
the
that
rain
was like
gradually
right at the beginning
declined?
of the rain when it was like pouring on us the entire time. We also slept on a slight incline, which did not help at all.
Yeah.
And we were next to a creek, which I did not consider at the time, but
like,
puts
it was
a ton of humidity in your tent.
was
One
just-
way or
yeah,
another, we
actually
woke up and
fucking
it was raining from the inside of our tent.
Yeah, it was the definition of a rookie mistake.
Yeah,
I remember getting dripped on.
that was the
Yeah,
first time I
like,
had camped in probably like 6 years, but
Yeah. So the first night outdoors is just a mess. And then I think after that, we went to that Walmart, and I said, I'm buying a new tent right here, right now. So I bought like a $50 Walmart tent, and then we go to Kenai.
no, you didn't. That, that was how that went. Yep.
Yeah, so we went to Kenai. We didn't know what to expect.
I got
We
a
didn't even
dope
see the
jacket
coast
while
there.
I was there too.
You did get a cool jacket there. So we go to Kenai, go change clothes. I remember we sat in a coffee shop and just we loitered at that coffee shop for hours, man.
There is no way we did not look like drifters.
Yeah, we look like some. Well, we kind of were, man. We were. What do they call it? Boondocking? Whatever you're driving.
Oh yeah,
around
we
like
did
that?
boondocking. Boondocking is when you live from your car. In Alaska, that is 100% legal. You can park anywhere on the side of the road that you would like and take a nap, and nobody cares.
Yeah.
You can do.
They even have spots where you can pull off and do it.
Yeah, they're pretty encouraging of it for real.
So we get our tent, and then we have. I think this is probably the coolest campground we had. So we camp on Lake Ski Lock, literally on the water.
Yeah, that lake was.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
And they had the
dude.
grate on the fire pit.
Like,
we ate well that night.
It was the water was so still that you could see, like, the mountains reflection just perfectly. It was.
Yeah, that.
And then we had our neighbors.
Yeah. Our neighbors were loud ass, like they almost sounded like rednecks.
They sounded like the worst
I want to know how a family
ever.
from Sims, Alabama, made it up there behind us. But they managed to make it up there in their like 1998 Ford F-150 with a half camper trailer that they have like ratchet strapped to the top of the bed.
I remember that was the worst neighbors for camping you could ever imagine. But other than that, dude, that was the coolest campground because we were set up comfortably.
Dude, they had road chickens.
Yeah,
Straight
they had
road chickens.
Pheasants there. I'd never seen a pheasant in my life.
You cannot tell me that was not the coolest.
Is it road chicken or ditch chicken?
Um,
Either one.
So,
They
so,
had
so
pheasants
believe it or not,
there.
that actually, I come to find out that those weren't pheasants. They have things literally called ground chickens.
Oh, that's what that was?
Yeah, it's literally called a ground chicken. They just roam around up there.
Remember those ground squirrels?
They did.
Yeah.
So we'll have to get to that in a minute. We
Oh,
we
yeah,
might have to pick
that's
up the
later in the
pace because I
trip.
know Reagan's gonna have to go to work here in a minute. It's like 11:30 on a Saturday. Reagan's got to be at
Nah.
work in like a half hour, so we're gonna kind of speed up a little bit.
Nah, we got plenty of time. We got plenty of time.
We
don't
got
worry.
time. So we stayed there, and that was a perfect night. The only thing that I can say negative about that place was the mosquitoes, but I had my goofy-looking bug net on, so I was fine.
You
And
look
the
like
third-
you
oh, here
look
we
like a
go.
beekeeper.
That's basically what that thing
It
is,
was pretty
man.
ridiculous.
The mosquitoes were terrible in that spot, but for the views and the vibe that was happening there,
And we had our fire
Perfect.
pit going. It felt fine. And then after that, I picked a campground next, and I picked another mid campground. That was the first time we
that
heard
was
of
that was
theirs.
whenever we whenever we left Ski Lock, we ended up going to that glacier.
Yeah, we did go to the glacier.
That
I
was
almost
we,
skipped
we
the
left.
glacier.
We left and went to the
was
glacier.
so cool too.
We visited Byron Glacier.
Yeah, Byron
Wasn't it?
Glacier. Literally a piece of ice so big it's the size of your own house. Or bigger than a house. And there was like multiple sections because there was the really blue part way up there.
Yeah.
We
had
got to, I mean to put it more simply, I mean we got to see the icebergs
yeah.
before they're gone. I mean those aren't going to be there soon.
Yeah, we got to see icebergs. We had to walk, what was it, probably a mile or two in the rain.
It was a mile. It was like a mile and 3/4.
It wasn't very far for real.
But also, it was like
no.
rain. You know.
It was a pretty solid walk. That's the rain was just not terrible. I remember being soaked the entire time, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah. But I remember that was a cool walk up there. And like that whole area was so huge, man. It felt like I didn't feel like I was in America. I felt like I was in the Scottish Highlands.
Oh yeah.
Like, have you seen
I felt like I was in a
Skyfall?
Game of Thrones episode.
Skyfall?
Yeah. You know the
like the
Skyfall
James Bond
Mansion?
movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like I was like at where they have Skyfall Mansion. Except it was icy and wet and rainy.
Honestly, dude, like that's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in the world.
That was
I do
one
have
of the
to
most
say,
beautiful places.
it's weird to experience. I mean, whenever you travel different places, you get different color palettes of like how like just what that part of the world looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy to be somewhere where the sky was like a white gray, the ground was white, or the ground was like that black pebble,
Yeah.
but had snow all over it, and then like a very legitimate blue being everywhere.
Some of the coolest colors of like some of the coolest
It was
natural
just stuff that you don't
blues.
see. I feel like you don't really see anywhere. I feel like that
mean,
specific
that's like-
scene was very specific
You see
area.
in a movie, man. It's
Yeah.
It
nuts.
did not look real. It looked like it. I agree. It looked like a movie.
Because
set.
we had that fella at the general store who gave us the ice cream who recommended that we go there.
Yeah,
Because we wanted to
we
go
were
to
going
Exit
to the-
Glacier.
Yeah,
but it
we
was
were
out of our
miserable,
way.
so we stopped to get some snacks, and
That was some of the
stumbled
best
upon.
ice cream ever. Alaskan coffee and ice cream are better than any place I've ever been.
Agreed.
Except
Yeah.
Italy. I will say Italy.
Italian
Yeah.
coffee was pretty dope.
And gelato.
Oh yeah, we got some gelato.
Yeah, that dude was. We stopped because the river was like insanely beautiful, and we
Yeah.
wanted some snacks. And this place had a pier. We thought we were gonna get to go out on the pier. I was incorrect.
We were
But
wrong.
we did meet one of the nicest little dudes on earth. He scooped an amazing ice cream cone and told us about this glacier. And
This dude was a Boy Scout for real, man. He knew what he was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
he was the Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
He was a nature boy.
So he sent us on our way to the glacier. After the glacier, we go back through Anchorage because we had to go through it to go north. Because I think we were originally going to stay south longer, but we wanted to get away
We
from
planned
the
on
rain.
spending half the trip south, half the trip north. Due to the very inclement weather at the time.
We were like, F it, let's go.
Yeah, we were like, all right, let's go ahead and just go up north, and maybe
Where
the
did we-
rain won't be there.
Where did we go first up north?
Well, so we went and we stayed one night. Like, didn't we?
We camped south of Denali because I remember you drove because we went to dinner at that restaurant Anchorage that had the door open. Do you remember that? That was miserable, man.
Yeah, it was so cold.
We waited forever. They left the door open. I don't know. That was
And
a
then the
miserable
burgers
restaurant
were not
experience.
that good.
Oh
the
yeah, I
price.
do remember that place. Yeah, that place was whack.
Yeah.
But yeah, we camped at this place south of Denali, and it was actually not a bad spot. Like,
The mosquitoes were bad. The campground was fine. But I remember we had like not a ranger. It was like the volunteer guy. He had like a Grateful Dead shirt on. I remember that, or like a.
Oh, I do remember that. That place wasn't bad by any means. It was just kind of weird because he came through and he was like, "There has definitely been bears in the area."
Yeah.
He was like, "There is, there
are bears.
They are about it right about now. So watch yourself."
Yeah, that was just like a weird feeling. That was the first time
we had
where I
really
thought I was like,
had to think about the bears.
Yeah, so we had to just say "Hey bear" every like 5-10 minutes. Like if it felt like no one had said anything for a while, it was just "Hey bear," and then we camped there.
Bear.
Dealt with mosquitoes because I remember you made that drive, dude. Carl, I don't know how you stayed awake to make that drive because you drove for like 2 straight hours, and then we stayed the night there. Woke up the next morning, and then I drove to that coffee place where you got the pancakes or waffles.
Dude, those flapjacks were dank too.
That
That was outside the Denali Visitor Center.
Yeah,
That's why there's such a big. I figured that out. We couldn't figure out why there was like such a
Now I
big.
remember the place we're talking about. It wasn't a very scenic campground or anything. It was just like a place we needed
Yeah.
to stay.
yeah.
Yeah, because you remember it had all the things that went off to the left.
Yeah. I remember I walked all the way down and went to the place where you pay for that one.
Yeah.
Camp Tenderfoot.
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 That
was the first campground.
Yeah, because we took all the really, really bad photos, and there's the one of me mooning you.
That was Tenderfoot. That was our first campground. And the third campground was the one that was south of Denali. Because I remember when we woke up and drove to the visitor center thing, that was my favorite drive of the whole trip. Because y'all
I'm
slept.
so mad that I slept through a lot of that, but I feel like we got toward whenever we woke up, we were at a part of the Denali Mountains where it was actually getting really cool too. So.
Yeah. We were really driving into elevation. I remember
got
I
that-
listened to the Pink Floyd Pulse album the whole way up
Yeah,
there.
you got that really cool ambiance going.
Yeah, I had a very nice little vibe because y'all were checked out asleep. I didn't make it through the whole album. I made it about 3/4 of the way, and then we pulled off to get something to eat. And then we drove like another 5 minutes up the road and took some really cool pictures of like the highway. You remember which ones I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's the one. I have a photo of the train track that runs through Denali.
Yes. And then we kept
But
going.
Remember
went
when
a
we
long
met
way
that bus
past
driver? Like we pulled off the road at one point.
That was on our
Bus
way back
driver was
south.
sitting there.
Piss Rock.
Yeah. Piss
No,
Rock.
that was leaving. No, that was leaving.
That was
Huntsville.
leaving
Huntsville.
Fairbanks.
Yeah, Fairbanks.
Was that leaving Fairbanks or was that leaving Chena Hot Springs? I think
No,
it was
Shayna Hot
Fairbanks.
Springs. Shayna Hot Springs was in like.
That was north of
Dude,
Fairbanks.
that was as far north as you get in Alaska. That was the end of the road. From there, you have to take a bush plane to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Did we like?
Piss Rock was
Go
whenever
there.
we were leaving Fairbanks, and there was all those crazy ass scenes because we were coming down from the high ground.
Yeah.
And we could see like literally until your eyes couldn't see anymore, and it was just vast, untouched wilderness. We talked about the potential of building multiple Buc-ee's and Walmarts.
Yeah, we said, man, this would be a beautiful place to build a Buc-ee's, or just a massive paid parking lot. Be great, dude. Why make it free when I can make money off it? You know. So we make it to the hot springs, and dude, I still have dreams about that place.
Dude, that place was actually magical.
It had its own airstrip. It was out in the middle of nowhere. It was like a resort. It had like cool little camp places. It had campgrounds that we stayed on.
It was like a genuine summer camp.
And then there were actual.
It was like a legit summer camp.
With
there
the
were
hot
actual
spring.
hot spring, like
And-
natural hot springs.
About the size of, what would you say, a football field? Or bigger than that? It was a giant bath
It,
that was irregularly shaped. It was like a peanut shape.
I wouldn't
kinda.
say the hot spring itself was the size of a football.
no,
field.
the hot spring itself
was like maybe.
that was just a big swimming pool.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
a really big swimming pool. Like it was just a giant hot tub.
But if you include all the rocks around it, like the whole, like
it'd be
the
like
full
it'd be
bath.
like the size of an Olympic swimming pool.
Yeah.
But, well, no, it'd be like maybe half the size.
Why are
of
we
it.
arguing over this? This is
I don't know.
Because
So
it
we
makes-
get to our
campground
up there.
It's a
We
big ass
set.
hot spring, man.
We go to the campground, or we go to the campground. We go to the hot spring. After the hot spring, we are big chilling. And there were some
Yeah.
swingers in that hot spring too. They
Yeah,
were
this
trying
place
to.
was a
They were trying to
swing-
swing us, bro.
This was a swinger like hotspot. I did not
We should have.
I didn't read that in the Google review when I looked that up.
I knew as soon as I was talking to those older people that they were definitely
Yeah,
swingers. I don't know how you didn't know. They were hitting on you, JP.
I know.
I
tend to have that effect on people sometimes. So after we did that, I remember that the next part was one of my favorite parts of the entire trip, dude. When we went back to our campground and there was that birch tree that had already fallen next to us, I took the hatchet and spent about 45 minutes chopping it into firewood, and then I put it on and I sat in my hammock and I listened to the creek behind me. And
he got some genuine work in.
I'd never felt more relaxed in my life.
It about sent him into the afterlife. He was happy.
He hit like that level of.
That was sheer dopamine release.
Yeah,
it was Nirvana, dude.
like
That's as close as I've
got.
gotten.
Nirvana.
I remember that. And then I remember we went on a walk around there too, because we were like, let's go take a look around. And then I feel like we went a little ways and we're like, we're getting too far. What if a bear shows up and just kills us now?
We didn't have anything on us. We had just kind of like wandered away. So we were like, we're going to go get all our stuff and do this again. And when we got to the camp, never did it again.
Yeah, because after chopping wood, laying in my hammock, doing the hot spring, we had been dropped. This is our 4th night outside.
That hot spring was really draining. There was a lot of interaction going on that one.
So after the hot spring,
1 million people there.
Yeah, and there was no cell signal at our campground. At the hotel itself, they had cell signal, so we could go check our phone. Yeah, they had Wi-Fi is what I mean.
They did have Wi-Fi. Holy shit, I forgot about that.
That was the only way we could communicate with anybody.
So we'd go all the way up there and then go back to the campground. I remember leaving that place in the morning. I was like, damn, I don't really want to leave here yet. I was so comfy.
Yeah,
but we had our Airbnb to look forward to.
Yeah, that I got to say, that place was pretty pimping.
I really wanted to go back to the Springs that night because they didn't close it until like late.
Yeah, they closed it at like 9
dude,
or 10
we got there and we were like so comfy wumpy and everything.
It was hard to get everyone else to go back, and so I wasn't going by myself.
I didn't feel like getting wet again. I'd only been soaked like the entire trip.
Yeah, we got soaked every day. We didn't take a shower for 4 days.
Yeah,
and then that was the first thing we did when we got to the cabin in Fairbanks. Well, we stopped in Fairbanks.
There?
Yeah.
That shower sucked.
That was the worst shower ever.
You got like a squirt of hot water, 4 minutes of cold. It sprayed you like it was having a seizure.
Gross.
It was inconsistent. It would literally be like
the water.
And then it would
was
stop.
Sometimes,
and you just stand there covered in soap and no water spitting out, and then you're like, when is it going to start again?
and you're freezing your
but let's talk about it. It was at the end of an Air Force base with F-35s. Dude, that was the craziest shit.
It was the Grand Theft Auto Air Force base, basically. Fort Zancudo.
Yeah, yeah, for real. That watching it, they took off like probably from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. those 2 days that we were there. They were doing. They were
taking off probably every 30, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 15,
30 minutes, yeah.
So we kept hearing the F-35s. We never heard any stealth bombers. I feel like I might have like barely seen one at night when we were watching Big Lebowski, but I might have.
I forgot we watched Big Lebowski.
I might have imagined that.
Yeah, I had.
We'll just call them superlatives for now. So the first night that we stayed there, I just remember being exhausted. And then the next day I had that interview. I had an interview on the phone with Sirius XM. So I had to get up early and I took that phone call.
Is that the job you're working now?
Huh? No. I have a different job now. I didn't get that job. I didn't get a call back after that because the lady's like, what's that noise in the background? I was like, F-35. Don't worry about it. I was like, I can't really explain. I was like, I just graduated college and I'm on vacation with some friends, but I wanted to take this call because I care about this opportunity. She's like, okay, that's great, and never emailed me. I was like, okay, well, that's what it's like getting ghosted by a professional lead on vacation. After y'all got up.
In academia, getting ghosted is just like, that's what PhDs do.
That's just how the business, that's just how the world works.
And then y'all, dude, thank God y'all went to do laundry. I just decompressed.
Laundry was the worst experience ever.
Yeah, that did not sound fun.
So we had all of our clothes, which was like 2 or 3 loads a person.
Cost us like $30 or something.
Yeah, we ended up spending a person. We ended up spending like $90 to do all of our laundry and have it dried. And not only that, but the laundromat vibe, dude.
It was weird.
Sketch. Fairbanks it's like Montgomery. That I will leave it at that because it's just kind of not super nice. It's not as near as nice as Anchorage.
I'm not gonna talk super bad on it. I will say like they tried to have a great the downtown area is beautiful. I do dig that.
That was a cool
that
vibe.
was
That's right.
cool.
Downtown Fairbanks was pretty cool. But we didn't go
Downtown
back
was
there.
cool. I didn't really care for the food.
Well, and technically, we were staying in North Pole.
Yeah, we're 30 minutes outside of Fairbanks, weren't
yeah,
we?
well, I mean, but I'm talking about in the times that we were in Fairbanks, we were only there. We were only there for a few times. That's when monkey mode happened.
Oh, Carl went full blown. He had a monkey mode or gorilla mode.
But
Reagan, you tell that story.
So we are in we're heading into into Fairbanks and at one point and what were we doing? We were all pissed off about something. Maybe we just hadn't slept good. Why were we upset?
Was this after we had already checked into our Airbnb?
Yes, because this is when we were on the. I think we were about to go to the barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, that barbecue was so good. That brisket sandwich.
Disagree, but okay.
Well, you got like a pulled pork sandwich or something like
I got
that.
some rib tips that were pretty alright.
I don't remember what you
Brisket
got.
or something.
I had something that was fire. I think I got burnt ends maybe or a brisket sandwich. I remember that was good. They had some cool artwork in Fairbanks. I got that really cool sweatshirt. That's where I bought my Hydro Flask too. Was in Fairbanks. We got some cool stickers there. I don't remember what. I don't really remember.
I got some thick socks.
Yeah, we got some extra socks
Like
there.
some military grade, like survive in the winter type stuff.
Yeah, we didn't really adventure much in Fairbanks. So the Airbnb,
No,
man.
our adventuring was more mental.
Yeah.
In Fairbanks.
Superlative.
Yeah, it was superlative.
Watched a really good movie.
Yeah, we watched The Big Lebowski. I fell asleep during it.
Enjoyed ourselves a cigar before we go to bed.
Yeah, our 10 o'clock sunset.
The sun never set.
Yeah, well, the darkest it would get would be what it looks like.
You would always
dawn.
see the glare of the sun over the horizon.
Yeah. So I remember just that farm really reminded me of Alabama. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't really a farm; it was probably a couple acres. They had a couple retention ponds, big old pile of dirt or a pile of gravel.
Threw so many rocks into that pond.
An old truck, an old shack, and like a barn dominium, like a green storage barn shed thing. They had like a chalet and a cabin. No, I think it was just storage because the owners came by a couple times. They just like went in and out of there. I think it's just like do you know what a barn dominium is? Mm-hmm. I think it was something like that. But it was just a nice place to wander around and have time to decompress because that was when we had some of the clearest skies. Was on our last day in Fairbanks and on our first days in Denali.
Yeah. Rewind though. We were all pissed off.
What were we mad about? I don't remember.
Yeah, we were on the way to this thing and we were all pissed off. And essentially, no cop, no stop. The light was turning yellow. I punched it. It turned red. I ran it still. But Carl.
Oh, this is gorilla mode.
This is gorilla mode. Carl.
He made a noise.
He didn't comprehend the situation.
I saw what happened and it worried the shit out of me, and I can't remember what I was doing at the time.
He was sitting in the front seat with his feet on the dash and his hand holding on to the
the bar.
Yeah, the
bar.
handle.
And he just goes, hey.
It was like a mix of hey, stop, no, don't. So Carl really went inner monkey right there. He really just went back. He reverted.
The primal instinct.
It was one of the most natural human reactions I've ever seen. Unnatural, but also most natural human reactions to anything ever.
I've been living in the woods for like 8 days, bro.
Yeah.
That was after the Airbnb.
Yeah. So
It was before the Airbnb.
I don't really remember what night that was that it happened. I think I might have saved the Snapchat on my phone from it. And then after we leave the Airbnb, we're heading south. And then this is when we come across the bus driver who's smoking a cig by that rock the rock that's covered in all that paint. And I was like, man, how'd all that paint get there? Well, he goes, well, we used to call it Piss Rock because this is where every bus driver stops to take a piss. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I think I'm going to do the same. And then he kind of walked away because then we lit up another joint. And then he's like, I got to be somewhere.
Okay.
He didn't really say anything.
Now that I think about it, did he stop to take a piss? Did we interrupt his piss?
I think he had already pissed and he was smoking a cig after because I feel like you piss first before you light up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was kind of ready. He just needed
yeah.
a few minutes to break. That guy was really cool. He
That's
was
how bad the piss is.
Yeah.
he was valid as And then after that, we mosey on into Denali National Park.
Oh,
Got
God.
the last campground in that campground. Purchased our bus ticket. Shout out to Reagan. I've still got my bus ticket in the back of my phone. So Reagan gets our bus tickets, and then we get like a couple bundles of wood. We get to our really soft ground campground.
Yeah, it was like covered in moss. I gotta say that wasn't like really aside. I mean, you can't really beat being inside of Denali Park, but like the aesthetic there was. Whew.
Yeah, that's another
it was
place
on
I
point.
dream
The ground
about.
was moss. It was real skinny trees. It was kind of like foggy. It looked like a movie.
That night too, or that day, I was still
The double rainbow day.
I was still feeling those superlatives. I was into the pudding.
I forgot about that. That was the
Yeah.
day we took that gnarly hike.
That was the day
Yeah.
we met Adit.
Adit, yeah, that dude was
Adit.
cool as shit. Too.
Yeah, we met a fella from Denver named Adit, and we hiked a mountain with him. Well, we set up our campground. Wait,
Mount
what were we about to say?
Henry?
No, we went and we set up our campground, and then from there, I was like, I'd been telling these guys for like, I've been telling these guys for probably a few months, hey, we're gonna go on hikes. You got to get in shape.
I was in okay shape. I wasn't in the best shape, but I was in good enough.
So I was like, whenever we went, we looked at some. We were thinking, we were like, let's do a hike. We got there fairly early in the day. We wanted to go enjoy the day. Well, I naturally took the little pamphlet that homeboy gave me at the visiting cottage, and chose the hardest hike that we could reach by foot that day.
Mount Healy Overlook.
Mount Healy Overlook.
That's what it was.
I want to say that it was the hardest one. It was
was-
definitely out of there was
it was
green yellows.
Difficult.
In the description,
There
it
was
was
like green,
strenuous.
yellows, and reds, and this one was a red one because it had like 3,500 foot of elevation over the course of like 5 miles or
thought I
something
was
like
gonna
that.
No,
died.
it wasn't that intense. I'm looking at the stats right now.
What was it?
The Mount Healy Overlook wasn't the longest one, but it was the most strenuous in elevation. It was 2.7 miles one way. So the halfway, so it'd be like one and a half miles.
5.5 after we walked it.
Yeah. No, 2.7 one way is like there and back. Round trip is I be doing my hiking stats. So it's 1,700 feet in a mile and a half, dude. I remember there was specifically one step on that trail that I had to like legit like pick my leg up to
Yeah,
get up it.
that step that was whenever they had the stairs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I
And-
thought I was gonna die.
Yeah,
you
I thought
also,
Carl
you
was
also
gonna die.
wore like 3 super thick jackets.
It was cold at first, and then we started hiking, and I was like, "Holy, dying!" and then
Thank God we had
we
water
got back
bottles.
up to the top, and I was like, "Oh man, I need my jackets again."
Yeah, so I remember the first part of it. When it was really low, it was all those white birch trees. And then we start going up, there's a clearing or two, and you get to see out. And then I took a bathroom break off a really high standpoint, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty neat.
Yeah, you had this obsession with like pissing everywhere you could.
Oh, dude, I felt like a puppy. I was marking my territory, man. And then we get about, I don't know, maybe a halfway up, and then we come across this dude named Adit. And then Adit's like, hey,
Adit thought he
I
saw
think
a
I
bear.
saw a bear. He's like, I think I saw something on the trail. So, like, can I walk with y'all?
Please describe Adit.
He was a shorter guy.
Little, like
He's a shorter Indian guy.
like Indian.
That's not offensive to say. That's quite literally.
Well,
what
he-
it was.
He's
guy.
from he's from the U.S. Like, he was raised in Denver. So, like, he was, like, second generation. So, he didn't really have an accent. Like,
But
was
he
from
was
India.
cool as shit,
The
man.
dude was dope. He was a finance guy. Well, the dude was bold enough to trips by himself. Like, he was up in Alaska by himself. He was just like, yeah, I like to take trips here and there.
And he was like
I usually do
hiking
it by
that mountain
myself.
by himself.
He was really cool, man.
Like,
I felt not better whenever we ran into him.
Like,
too,
dude was
because
straight up main
he was
character
running
in it.
behind with me,
Yeah, y'all. He was a great 4th edition, like a great extra character. And then we finally make it up there, and it literally looked like New Zealand, like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
and then we get up there to the peak at 1,700 feet of elevation, whatever the actual elevation was. I know I have that stat somewhere in my phone, but we get all the way up there, take a bunch of pictures, look around, and then what do you know? A double rainbow. The most clear, beautiful double rainbow I'd ever seen before, man.
We got pictures of it.
We got some pictures. It rained on us a little bit. It was way colder up there. And then
It was windy. It wasn't that cold.
Yeah, we descended back down. We had those like camp
in
meals.
and about killed us.
Yeah, dude, I was for real afraid when that wind started howling on us. I was like, I need to get the hell out of here.
Dude, it was whipping by like 60 miles an hour.
I don't know if it was 60 miles an hour, bro, but it was that wind was whipping. And then we went down to the bottom of the mountain.
By that wind.
Well, remember, you weigh 105 pounds.
What storm are you talking about?
Talking about whenever we were
on top of Mount Healy towards the end of it.
Oh yeah.
And the sky started just rolling in on us.
Yeah. Oh, but that was when we saw that double rainbow.
Yeah.
And we looked over the whole valley.
So we'd see the double rainbow and descend. We got our fire going.
Sorry, I missed if that was already said.
No, you're good. You're good.
Just went through.
And then we go back to the campground. We set up, and then I remember we were supposed to be up super early to wait on that bus, and then the bus ended up being like 45 minutes late. And the moment we got to 2 miles in on the 90-mile road, all cell signal was lost.
Yeah. It wasn't even that, dude. We got maybe a mile. I think I had maybe 10 minutes of cell signal.
Yeah, we didn't have cell signal for very long.
Awesome.
It was really freeing.
It was nice.
Because I remember I just felt like I didn't really have to be on my phone. I literally had to be present. So I just gave myself the task.
We didn't have a choice. It was
I remember reading while I was there, and I was just getting so much reading done.
Yeah, we had the 2 books we had. They were perfect books for people to just leave our campground alone, because we just had a Bible and a book about DMT. So we're
DMT, the spirit molecule. Everybody read it. You should.
So we had those books at our campground. We had a couple other people at Igloo Creek. So we're 30 miles in. But I think one of the most incredible parts of it was at mile 5 or 10 was when we could see the mountain. You could literally see the tallest peak in North America. And that was just...
And the clouds weren't on it, which apparently is
a bluebird day.
Yeah, it was crazy thing.
Our little
campsite, we got to see both peaks of the mountain. That was dope.
Our little campsite that we had whenever we went into Denali, we were
Igloo
44,
Creek?
45 miles?
33.3.
Yeah.
33.3, okay.
Because at mile 45 is where the road collapsed and a landslide.
So we, that campground though was gorgeous, dude.
I mean,
we
it
were
was
right next to that creek.
Yeah, and the name of the mountain was Saddle Pass Mountain or something like that. It was it was some old Western type name.
There were some cool mountains.
There was also Igloo Mountain.
Yeah, there was Igloo Mountain.
But really,
that creek next to the campsite.
My 2 favorite parts.
I'm gonna have to pause and take a leak.
Heard.
Actually, I'm just gonna mute myself if y'all want to keep going.
Go for it.
Well, you'll be integral to these parts of the story, so go ahead and pause.
And now we're rolling. Okay, well, we lost Reagan due to my terrible bowels. So I scared Reagan away. Now, Reagan had to go to work. But right now, me and Carl are going to continue on. Because where did we leave off our first night? We left off on our bus ride into Denali, seeing the mountain.
And then we got into our little campsite by the creek, which my favorite part about that campsite was whenever everything, we didn't have any food. We only had the food that we could eat at the appropriate times.
Yeah.
And I just walked around and picked wild blueberries.
We filled up a whole cup of blueberries for real.
Yep. Louis.
I think do you want him up on this couch or where do you want him?
Over here, bud.
Big Lou. I'm just afraid he's going to mess up that cable. He's really aware of it too, though. I'm sure he's had to deal with it a lot at your
music
house.
cables all the time.
Yeah, we're sitting next to a drum set right now at Carl's house. So we picked all those blueberries because Reagan was tired, man. Reagan said, I'm taking a nap. So this is when Carl and I did our solo ventures, really.
Yeah, we went and picked a ton of blueberries and filled up a cup. And then we went and offered Reagan some, and he was like, no, that.
He's like, I don't want to eat no damn wild blueberries.
And then, dude, those blueberries were so good, though. They schmacked, hit the spot. Nail on the head.
Was that the day that we saw the bears?
No, so it was actually, yeah, that might have been the day that we saw the bear.
So I think the first day we got into our campground, we just kind of walked up the road a little ways.
Yeah.
Because Denali Park is just a 90-mile road, and at the end of it is the mountain, Mount McKinley, Denali Peak, whatever.
It was we took that bus ride. We caught that bus all the way in to like where the landslide had broken off the bridge.
Yeah.
And then we crossed over that little gap and made our way up onto this ridge because they didn't have any trails. It's just free hiking at that point.
You just find something that someone else has walked on and hope you can get up it.
Yeah, exactly. And when we got up to the top of that ridge, like we actually made it up there, and
that joint must have attracted some animals.
Yeah, somebody definitely smelled that and was like, "Ooh, hot lunch."
Somebody be like a giant 9-foot tall bear.
Dude, it was an enormous grizzly bear.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember Reagan and I like caught it in the corners of our eye on the road right where we just started walking up the ridge. Like it was stupid how close it was to us. And then
it was 250, 275 yards away, I'd say.
Yeah, it was close. And then we started booking it down the other side. I remember you saying, that's a new feeling, being the smaller fish.
That's a new type of adrenaline, man. Because we got to mile 45, hiked a 3/4 of the mile away up till we saw a trail. And then I've been looking at the pictures. We got a third of the way up the ridge to that peak of that mountain. And then we stopped at about maybe a quarter of the way up, made it to a third of the way up, turned around and saw a bear walking the same exact path that we took to get to where we were. And I was like, yeah, we're going to reposition. So we went full Call of Duty Warzone and repositioned on the bear. And then when we get down there, there's the park ranger. He's like, were y'all the 3 guys up on the mountain? And we're like, yeah, that was us. He goes, yeah, y'all moved at the right time. I was like, holy
He let us look through his binoculars, and that bear was climbing right up over that ridge.
Yeah, dude.
And he was trekking that thing quick, dude.
He was trekking. That was just a scary feeling, man. That was the third bear we seen, because the first one we saw on the bus ride, just chilling on that watershed area.
And then we saw another one on the bus ride deeper into the park.
Yeah, I'm almost convinced that was the same bear.
I think it was, dude, because that was a bear. That was a huge bear.
I have a picture on my phone zoomed all the way in, and then there's a picture of it on Reagan's camera, and dude, it's insane how different our 2 cameras are. I'm gonna post both of those whenever I put this out.
Bro, do you remember that like family kinda?
Yeah, the badass family with the 6 iron, with the big iron on his hip.
Yeah, that kid with the big iron. And then so they went up there and like just camped up there.
Yeah, dude.
Like free camping, no regulated spot or anything. That's crazy to me.
That is so cool that they were camped probably 46, 47 miles in. Because the rule there is you can basically just hop out of the bus anytime you want, but you have to go far enough out that they can't see your tent from the bus.
Yeah.
And you can camp there. So what this family did, it was a family of 4 or 5?
It was like 3.
Yeah. Well, they went all the way to where we went up that mountain, and I guess they went over the mountain so they weren't visible from the bus.
Yeah.
And they camped there, and then we saw them the day that we decided to hike up that mountain. And then when we saw that bear, we got out of there, took the bus home. I remember trying to get on that bus was a pain, dude, because we just walked on it.
Waited for that bus forever.
Yeah.
Because we like barely missed the first one.
Yeah.
And it did not come back until a few hours.
Well, no, I'm talking about whenever we were leaving the 45-mile marker thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because that bus driver goes, am I taking these guys too? And after we'd already hopped on the bus, and they're like, yeah, you have to like wait in line. So we go wait on the shelter bus, and then at the last minute as the guy's leaving, he's like, I'm taking these fellas too, and then we hop on. The funniest part of that whole interaction, though, was the guy who walks up to the bus driver and just goes, Wonder Lake. You remember that?
Yeah. And he was like really explaining it to him, like, the Wonder Lake is not available right now.
And then the guy just goes, Wonder Lake. And then he just basically says, we're not going there. And just pretty much the guy shuts up, goes back to his seat, and we go back. We get dropped off. That's when Reagan took a nap, and that's when we went and did the berry picking. And the whole time, whenever I got bored and needed to move around, I would just go fill up the canteen.
Yeah.
I had the little canteen set up. We had ourselves a really relaxing little second afternoon there. And then after that, we missed the bus that next morning.
And remember that old dude that was camping next to us? That like
he was unhappy with us.
Guy?
Yeah, it literally looked like Ned Flanders. We're in a legal state. We're going to do legal activities. and this dude's like doing calisthenics like on the picnic table. Cause it's like the only flat surface there. He's like stretching his back out.
A professional camper.
Oh, full blown dude. He rode his bike all the way there.
Yeah.
That's insane. Or he might have thrown it on the bus, but I feel like he probably biked the whole way. He definitely knew what he was doing because the park ranger told me, he's like, hey, if y'all have any questions, I've seen this guy before. So, like, just ask him for help if y'all need anything.
He straight up told us, too. He was like, the reefer might attract bears. And we were like, uh-huh.
He called it reefer. He called it reefer and dope. We're like, okay, you stick in the mud, old man. So we had to kind of deal with that. We didn't really have to deal with it much. And that I remember I got okay bro'd by that other group of people camping there. Like, you know how whenever you're just trying to be friendly and then they're just not feeling it, he'd be like, okay, bro. I was like, wow, I guess I'll just f*** off then. I guess I'll just do my own thing. Because we were like probably 60 yards. I think I walked it out from like the front of our tent to where the food was.
Yeah.
But they were in those bear containers. They have like legit things bears can't get into.
Yeah,
but there was still bear right next to it. But dude, there was some going on. Because the whole trip, Carl and I are sharing a tent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you heard that sound in like the middle of the night on our first night there. Sounded like something was walking around out there.
Yeah, but it sounded like it was like probably like some sort of caribou or something.
Yeah, it wasn't like stomping. You couldn't smell it because bears, you can smell them and you can hear that big ass foot that they got.
We ran into Flanders. We were coming out of the bear thing, remember? And we run into Flanders and he was like, oh, I wouldn't be too worried about bears if I were you guys. You guys were screaming curse words pretty loud.
Yeah, he was getting on us, bro. We were just cursing.
It's like, bro, we're out here in the wilderness by ourselves. Worried about bears? Of course I'm saying
This dude was from, like, Wisconsin or something like that. Sorry to hate on people. I feel like he was Wisconsin or Idaho.
No, he was, like, Midwestern, definitely, like...
Midwestern Grandpa Flanders.
Bland vanilla-ass, like, granola, kale.
Yeah, and we had that lame-ass bear bell on the whole time. That thing was so lame. Yeah, I mean, you need it, but we're also being loud. Because this is the first day that we're in the park, and we just walk up the road, and we're like, oh, yeah, let's check this. I don't remember when it was, but we walk up there, and then, yeah, when we saw that big old pile, we were like, yeah, we're not dealing with this.
Not the place for us.
Definitely not. So we go back to the campground, and we just chill there. I slept really good my second night there. I slept so good that we woke up late and missed the bus.
Yeah. I fell asleep in my hammock there, or my little Eno thing.
Yeah. I kind of napped I brought some corded headphones with me, so I'd listen to some music while I was in the park, and that was really nice. I still have a playlist saved on my phone from what I listened to in my hammock and on the bus ride on the way out. It's a really good playlist.
Yeah. I guess after that, though, we really just, like, went and found that campground that we just needed to fill another day with.
Yeah. We'll probably edit out talking part of it, but
what are you talking about? This is the gold.
I mean, this is the most authentic, real part of it, talking about how tough it was to use the bathroom on that trip,
I had
dude.
A really bad case of the old camp clamp.
Yeah, we had the camp clamps a lot during the trip, man. It was hard to get comfortable with using the bathroom out there. Well, if you go take a leak, like, that's no problem. That's like the most freeing, easy part. But if you gotta really make do, then you gotta find a way to just survive out there and do it. But that last campground, and then we stayed in that hotel. We stayed in the motel that cost me a fortune. I don't know why it was. I mean, it really wasn't that bad. So we stayed in that last hotel, and then we get on the plane, and we got the hell out of there, back to Mobile. And then because I think we just let Reagan have that extra bag, I was like, I'm just gonna take my bag. I'll just see y'all tomorrow. And then we circle all the way back to here, later right here where we were standing, looking at all of our pictures on the TV screen. Man, that was such a cool experience. And we'll just kind of, I guess, wrap up right there at about an hour and 15. There's going to be a good bit of editing going into this, but thank you for joining me, man.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for allowing me to bring the Gypcast into here.
The Gypcast.
If you made it to this point in the episode, then congratulations. You have made it to one of my favorite parts of doing these episodes lately, and that is the footnotes. So I ended up just using the audio from that recording that we did back in February because it was much easier to just use that and then edit it out rather than edit and then record myself and then go back into listening to it. I figured I would just let it play. But by footnotes, I mean, let's talk about some of the statistics and other things that happened on the trip. So like the max elevation that we got, all of us grew up at sea level. The highest we got was 3,500 feet. And that was just inside Denali National Park. You heard us talk about a hike that we took that was, I think, 1.7 or 1,700 feet of elevation. It was like a 2.7 mile hike, so like a mile and a half, 1,700 feet of elevation. We were 3,500 feet up, could see a double rainbow, and it was absolutely just, it was breathtaking. Like, it's the cheesiest word I could use for it, but that's the best word that I can use to describe it. But let's talk about the distance driven. So we fly into Anchorage. It takes basically all day to get there, and we rent this car, and then we're there for a few days, driving around town basically every day. And then when we leave there, we drive 3 hours south from Anchorage to Seward, the tourist town where the cruise ship stops. And then we drive probably an hour that night to the campground. The next day, we drive probably an hour or more to the fishing town, Kenai. I don't know if that just picked up. I just had to scratch my knuckle. That's holding on to this microphone right now. But we drive another hour to Kenai, and then the Lake Ski Lock was probably another hour. So there's minimum hour, if not more, every single day of us driving. Like probably over 1,000 miles. I think we put 1,000, 2,000 miles on the car. I don't really remember what the range was, but we got the car through Turo. And then after we leave the campgrounds, whenever we went to the glacier, it's like another probably 2 hours or so to get back to Anchorage. Then we drove 2 more hours north, stay the night south of Denali National Park. But just for a reference, the distance between Anchorage and Fairbanks is about 6-7 hours. So it's a lot of driving. So we camp just south of Denali Park, and then we drive all the way up to Chena Hot Springs, or Chena. I don't even know how you pronounce it. But we drive all the way up there, and that's another hour and a half past Fairbanks. So it's like 4 or 5 hours in that one day there. And then it's probably an hour back to Fairbanks. And then it's like 30 minutes to the North Pole place where Santa Claus is and the F-35s. And then we leave Fairbanks after staying there for 2 days in the Airbnb. And then we do 4 more nights outside. 3 of them were in Denali National Park. The first night was barely inside the park when we did that hike and got max elevation. And then we drove, no, we didn't drive. We rode a bus 33 miles in, stayed 2 nights outside. This is when we seen all these grizzly bears, man. And then after we leave the park, we stayed at like one of the most low-key, one of the campsites. But we smelled terrible by the end. We had an amazing time. It was absolutely worth it. I want to go ahead and say that before I say how much the trip cost, because the trip was probably like $3,000, maybe just shy of $3,000. Absolutely worth every single penny. I don't think I would change any of it for the world. Like, as you can see by this story being over an hour and 15-minute long podcast episode, would I go back though? Definitely. First off, I would hopefully have way more money whenever I went back, so I could go straight to the hot spring place, stay in like a cabin or something. Like when we say it was a summer camp, they had houses, hotel, resort. They had a bunch of cool stuff there. So I would stay there again. I would hopefully be able to take like a helicopter tour of Denali National Park. I think that would be really cool. I want to get closer to the mountain, maybe camp at the Wonder Lake, because there was erosion on the road. So it was erosion at like 45 miles. So you couldn't drive what is the 90 miles to get all the way to the end and really be up next to the mountain. But it's such a tall mountain that it creates its own weather around it, which is just absolutely nuts. But I realized I never mentioned the 5 points trip thing that I always mention in other contexts. But, you know, if you look at a map, it's got 4 corners. And in the center is my 5th point, which is basically Europe. So I want to see Europe maybe next. But Alaska is up in the top left corner. So I got to see that. I'm like 20% complete. But I think it's going to take an entire lifetime for me to see that. Patagonia, which is in South America, Chile, Argentina. I, of course, want to see New Zealand and Australia, most specifically like the Shire. If I go to New Zealand, I want to see that. And then I don't really know where I want to go in Asia, but I definitely want to go there. I want to go to Africa. There's a lot of different places I want to go next, but like specifically, I want to go to Peru, man. We had a Peruvian guest at the place I work saying that you should take the walking trail to Machu Picchu. That takes a day or 3 days, and I'm in. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm all about it. But if you made it all the way to here, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Quarter Life Crisis, the Alaska recap. It's been a year since the trip. I feel like we covered all the bases, but some of my other favorite stuff about it, I brought a disposable camera with me, We got some amazing photos with the disposable camera. I'll probably post some of those. I don't know what the background photo is going to be, like the cover photo, but I'll have some good ones for the Instagram. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening.